Hi, this is Kath Gavin. Welcome to Breaking Bread. Over the next several weeks and months, I plan to share with you my insights on the book of Revelation as I study it. I used to believe the 7 seals and 7 trumpets in Revelation represented different periods throughout the gospel age. You may have been taught something similar. Many believe the events described in Revelation are unfolding now or are about to unfold. But what if I told you they all happened within Daniel's 3.5 years that began around about when the sacrifice and the oblation ceased in 66 AD and ended when the city and the sanctuary were destroyed in 70 AD. As I compare Revelation to the rest of the Bible and the writings of first century historian Josephus, the latter view is making more and more sense to me. Today we're going to examine Revelation chapter 7. By the end of this video, you should understand the time period it was set in and the event it describes. Revelation 7 verses 1 to 4. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Revelation 14 and 7 are very similar. Both mention 144,000 being sealed in their foreheads. Revelation 14 verse 1. And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. If we explore the context of Revelation 14, that might help us to understand what earth represents in chapter 7, also the 144,000, who they were, when and why they were sealed. Revelation chapters 12 to 14 describe very important events that took place in 66 AD, as recorded in the Wars of the Jews, Book 2, chapters 17 and 18. In Revelation 12, we see a pregnant woman standing on the moon. She is clothed with the sun and has 12 stars in her crown. We also see a red dragon ready to devour her man-child as soon as he's born. The woman represents faithful Israel, through whom descended Jesus Christ. Who tried to kill Jesus as soon as he was born? Herod the Great. Therefore, the 7 heads on the dragon represent the Herodian dynasty, from Herod the Great to Agrippa II, who ruled as client king over Judea in 66 AD. Client kings were those put into power by Rome. The 10 horns on the dragon represent 10 Roman Caesars, from Julius Caesar to Emperor Vespasian. Josephus described a situation in 66 AD in which Agrippa II was driven out of Jerusalem. In fact, every Roman influence was driven out of the city, and Herod's temple was burnt down by zealots. The zealots were an extreme political faction who wanted Jewish independence from Rome at any cost. They were willing to use violence to achieve their goals. They were basically terrorists. I'll read a couple of portions from the Wars of the Jews, Book 2, chapter 17. Agrippa attempted to persuade the multitude to obey Florus until Caesar should send one to succeed him, but they were hereby more provoked and cast reproaches upon the king and got him excluded out of the city. Nay, some of the seditious had the impudence to throw stones at him. The others then set fire to the house of Ananias the high priest and to the palaces of Agrippa and Bernice. This was the point at which the dragon was cast from heaven to earth. In Revelation 13, we see a beast rise from the sea, which also had 7 heads. These heads may represent the Hezekiah dynasty. Hezekiah's son, Judas of Galilee, established the Zealot movement in 6 AD. Judas's grandson, Menahem, was a prominent Zealot leader in 66 AD. This beast therefore represents Zealot-led Israel, who rose up in strength and influence as the dragon was cast down. Then we see a second beast rise from the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. It caused everyone to worship the first beast and to receive a mark in their hand and forehead. Here, earth represents the temple, specifically the part of the temple only the priests were allowed to enter. Therefore, the second beast represents the corrupt Jewish priesthood led by Eleazar ben Ananias. To receive the mark of the beast was to pledge allegiance to the Zealot movement and to join their revolt. This was the pressure people were under at the time. They either joined the revolt or they were murdered by the Zealots. Revelation 13 verse 15. As many as would not worship the beast of the image should be killed. Now I read another portion from the Wars of the Jews, Book 2, chapter 17. At the same time, Eleazar, the son of Ananias the high priest, a very bold youth, who was at that time governor of the temple, persuaded those that officiated in the divine service to receive no gift or sacrifice from any foreigner, and this was the true beginning of our war with the Romans. Hereupon the men of power got together and conferred with the high priests. They showed the great indignation they had at this attempt for a revolt, for their bringing so great a war upon their country. After Eleazar ben Ananias refused to receive sacrifices from foreigners, a declaration of war upon Rome, Zealots seized control of the temple. The men of power and high priests, peace-loving men opposed to the Zealot-led revolt, then seized upon the upper city, also called Mount Zion. Upon this, the men of power with the high priests, as also the part of the multitude that were desirous of peace, took courage and seized upon the upper city, Mount Zion. For the seditious part had the lower city and the temple in their power. These men refused the mark of the beast. Revelation 14. If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in their forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. These men on Mount Zion represent the 144,000, a remnant from each of the 12 tribes who were faithful to God under the old covenant. The seal of God was not a seal of protection from physical death, rather an assurance of eternal life with God. Revelation 14 verse 13. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. We must remember that the old covenant was still in effect at this point. It did not entirely pass away until the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Matthew 5 verse 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. According to Josephus, soon after the seditious seized upon the temple, the tower of Antonia was assaulted by them, which made the temple 4 square, a sign of its imminent destruction. The 15th of the month Lois, they made an assault upon Antonia. They dug a mine from a great distance under one of the towers and made it totter. And having done that, they set fire on what was combustible and left it. And when their foundations were burnt below, the tower fell down suddenly. And Wars of the Jew, Book 6. The Jews, by demolishing the tower of Antonia, had made their temple 4 square, while at the same time they had written in their sacred oracles that then should their city be taken, as well as their holy house, when once their temple should become 4 square. Roman soldiers pleaded for mercy, and Eleazar ben Ananias promised to let them live, but as soon as the soldiers put down their weapons, Eleazar's men barbarously murdered them all. Josephus wrote that at this point the city was all over polluted with abominations. Metilius, who was the Roman general, sent to Eleazar and desired that they should give them security to spare their lives only, but agreed to deliver up their arms. The others readily complied with their petition. But as soon as they had all laid down their shields and their swords, Eleazar's men attacked them after a violent manner, and thus were all these men barbarously murdered. It appeared to be a prelude to the Jews' own destruction. The city was all over polluted with such abominations, from which it was but reasonable to expect some vengeance. This murder was perpetrated on the Sabbath day, on which day the Jews had a respite from their works on account of divine worship. Furthermore, Josephus wrote that in the very same day and hour that these soldiers were killed, 20,000 Jews were slaughtered in Caesarea due to the direction of providence. When the Tower of Antonia fell, making the temple 4 square, and when the Roman soldiers were slaughtered on the Sabbath day, it was time for God's judgment to begin. It was time for his destructive winds to be released upon the earth. Revelation 14, the hour of his judgment is come. Whilst in Revelation, earth often represents the temple, the Greek word rendered earth in Revelation 7 can also mean the land of Israel and its inhabitants. Earth, gi, land of a country, region, territory as the land of Israel, one's native land, spoken particularly of and used in an absolute sense of the land of the Jews, Palestine, figuratively used for the inhabitants of a country. At the end of Revelation 14, we see the great winepress of the wrath of God being trodden without the city. According to Josephus, in 66 AD, death and destruction were happening inside and outside the city simultaneously, but it was sparked by what happened in the temple. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD marked the end of the Old Covenant sacrificial system and the Levitical priesthood. It also marked the beginning of a new covenant age without end. God's people, spiritual Israel, would forever dwell with God in his kingdom of righteousness. 2 Peter 3, verse 12. Looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. You can be a part of this everlasting kingdom of righteousness today, but you must first put off your old man with his deeds. Put on the new man created in righteousness and true holiness through godly sorrow and repentance proven by deeds. You can access the notes from this video on my blog, crystalcleartruths.blogspot.com. The link is in the description box below. Also check out my Facebook page, Crystal Clear for Christ, to which I share the recordings of our Zoom fellowship. If you're interested in joining our Zoom fellowship, then you can read the belief statement on my blog and send me an email. Thank you for listening, and God bless as you study to show yourself approved.